I know your work from my previous work. Prior to getting into federal law enforcement, I had the great fortune of spending a number of years, about 5 years, in the area of civil rights. I served as the Regional Equal Employment Officer for the General Service Administration for this region, the Dallas-Fort Worth region, and the Denver region. So I know the work, I know your contribution, I know what you are about. Unfortunately, we are in an environment right now that does not value diversity, does not value inclusion, and does not value equity. That is the environment we are in. Why would I say that on this day? I'm saying that when I think about how the previous administration at the national level did everything within their power to disenfranchise brown and black voters across the country, including Tarrant County. Earlier this year, the Tarrant County judge and a couple of other cronies, yes, I said the word crony, a couple of cronies, created what's called an election integrity fraud unit to intimidate brown and black voters from simply exercising the fundamental right to vote. And that's our sheriff has been engaged in that. I brought with me a couple of documents. And one of the documents I have is the constitutional requirements of a chief peace officer. Indeed, that is the job of the sheriff, a chief peace officer. And as I read through this document, through all the rules, all the responsibilities, all the qualifications, I have not found yet anything in this document about election fraud. I have, however, seen something in here about jail administration. I have, however, seen something in this document about ensuring that the courthouses are safe and secure, that the citizens of Tarrant County, you are safe in your personhood, you are safe to go about your business in this area, both in the urban area and the rural part where there's not a law enforcement presence. Those are the responsibilities of the sheriff. So when I got in this race, when I was asked to run for this position, having retired from the Federal Protective Service, I looked both to my left and I looked at my right. And I noticed that the sitting sheriff is simply concerned with a political ideology. What in the world does conservative has to do with leadership? I'm running as a leader. I'm running to leverage my years of experience in leadership in public service to ensure that the people who do commit serious offenses, when they are in custody, that the county jail is not a death chamber. When I first got in this race, I went around telling people I had 59 reasons to run. 59 reasons. I'm running because Chastity, baby, died in the hands of the sheriff. I'm running because a woman who had been experiencing a mental health crisis, Georgia K. Baldwin, died of dehydration because the sheriff is more concerned about a political ideology than performing his constitutional job. That's the only reason I'm running. I'm not running for a title, I'm not running for a paycheck. I'm running because public service is a high calling. It is a commitment. It is for those who are committed to justice, to doing the right thing. So simply put, as your sheriff, here's what I want to do. I want to focus on accountability. I want to focus on accountability. I want to do what our city of Fort Worth failed to do. I want to create a citizen review commission to have diverse perspectives from the community, LULAC and others, to say to the sheriff, if there's a use of force, what happened, how it happened. If there's a death, what happened on my 60th birthday, which was January 9th. The 60th person died in Tarrant County. We learned about it by reading the news last night. I want citizens to know what happened, why the person's in custody, who took care of the person. Oh, by the way, just in case you don't know, any person in jail under mental health observation, there's a 30-minute requirement check, according to the state commission rules. Any person in jail who's not experiencing a mental health, there's a 60-minute requirement. So why are these people who are dying, we're not doing our fundamental job? So the Citizen Review Commission will ensure that citizens are involved, that as your sheriff, we know what's going on, and we can ensure that that does not happen again. And then from a trustworthy perspective, my initiative is 100P3. 100P3. And that is, within the first 100 days, I want to have a robust, a comprehensive review of every practice, every policy, and every procedure, and have broad community input to ensure that we are doing the right thing to keep you safe and to make sure that we are eliminating this overcrowding. We are eliminating that 40 million plus contract we have with Garza County, that we're eliminating this need to pay Javante Myers and others who have died a $1 million settlement because of neglect on behalf of the sheriff. That's why I'm running for sheriff. Again, my name is Patrick Moses. You can find out about us on mosesforsheriff.com. I'm going to stop talking, and if you have some questions related to this one, I am going to shut up and answer your questions. Thank you again.
Officer right there.
Okay, good. What can be done about these deaths in the jail, these unnecessary deaths, 3 times the national average? And that dead baby case settled yesterday. They won't tell us the amount yet, but I'm sure it's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit again. And all these people that are being transported over 300 miles away to this for-profit prison. Do you have any specific? I know you touched on both those issues. Do you have any specifics about what we can do here to solve those problems? You want me to repeat it really?
Well, yeah, I'll sum it.
I'm very sorry. Okay, what can be done about all these deaths in the jail that are 3 times the national average? And that dead baby case just settled yesterday. They haven't told us the amount yet, but it's going to be a multi-million-dollar lawsuit like the others. And also what can be done about these people that were transporting over 300 miles away to a for-profit prison.
Accountability, trustworthy. Let me tell you this. I am by vocation. I've had 2 vocations. One, public administration, the other, church administration. Trust me, I get it. People die. I understand that. As a pastor, just 2023, I had to bury a 5-month-old baby, a 36-year-old woman, and a 101-year-old woman. I know people die. I get that. I understand that. I understand death. I understand natural death. But what I do not understand is when a person dies in custody because of neglect. A review of our policies, practices, and procedures will mitigate those kind of things. I am convinced that part of the death cases in Tarrant County is because of how the sheriff is not paying attention to the women and men who are hired, who are educated, who are developed to perform their jobs. So it's a simply to ensure that we recruit the right people in those critical positions, that they are properly educated. And then we don't have to worry about paying to represent, legal representation for the jailers who are on trial for the Javante Meyer. And then also having to pay out multi-million-dollar lawsuit. That money is coming out of your pocket. That money is coming out of your pocket. Having to redirect money to take care of health care, early childhood education in Tarrant County, and send it over to a small town, small rural Garza County for a private jail. So it's some simple things, simply oversight, simply education, simply developing and recruiting the right staff. Did I answer your question? Yes, sir.
You spoke about accountability. Would there be anything preventing you from auditing past procedures and policies if you were elected of the current sheriff?
Well, again, my review, robust review, we're going to go back and see what has happened in the past administration and how did this pop. Ignoring a person in a jail did not happen overnight. That is something, that is part of some past practices. So I want to review those past practices to make sure that those in custody, that they go to one or two off-ramps. They either bail out of jail, or three, they're acquitted, or they're convicted and transferred either to state custody or to state jail or to state penitentiary.
Would it be made public?
Absolutely, absolutely. Hopefully I was clear with that everything that we do, I want to make sure that we're very, very transparent. That's why I want to have broad community input to make sure that citizens know exactly what's going on and then hold me accountable for those processes. Yes, ma'am.
So Tarrant County is the largest county in Texas with 287G agreements. If you were to be elected, what would you do to get rid of it? Are you familiar with it?
I am. I did work in Homeland Security. I did do extensive amount of work on the southern border. Matter of fact, I helped draft my agency's southern border policies and practices. From San Diego, I had responsibility for that quarter for a number of years. From San Diego, all the way down to Brownsville. So I'm very familiar with all of the immigration rhetoric and all of the immigration issues occurring in this area. Now let me say this about 287. Contrary to what the man wearing the black hat who went to the White House made a statement to citizens trying to demonize individuals who look like those represented in this room. Despite, that racist view. Instead of saying, listen, we need to take a look at 287J because those on the right create policies and practices. So those of us who believe in justice will run around and try to say you're soft on crime. So that's a political narrative. If a person commits a crime, please hear this. You notice, I don't think you heard me say one time about a citizen or a non-citizen. Did you? Did you hear me say that? If a person commits a crime, regardless of that person's citizenship, see, I'm trying to avoid some of the political hot topics that the sheriff wants me to get in the middle of. So regardless of that person committed an offense, the first thing is to work with the municipal departments to ensure that is either a cite and release issue or if that is an aggravated offense. And then it does not matter what that person's citizenship status is. The issue is get that person before the jury of his or her people and decide what is the right outcome. So I'm avoiding, and I'm just letting you know, I'm avoiding getting into some of these issues that the sheriff and Texas Liberty folk want to get involved in. I'm going to avoid those hot topics and simply focus on if a person is arrested, we need to make sure that we are doing the right thing to make sure that they are safe, that we house them properly, and get them to 1 or 3 offerings. Now, more important, on all of those issues, I'm running to serve as sheriff. I'm not running for a county commissioner or a state legislature or a congressional position. And so 287G is a federal law that deals with immigration. And a number of conservative politicians are using this to keep people divided. And I am not in this race to deal with those divisive matters, to try to demonize other people. Trust me, I know that does not sound politically correct. I get that. I understand that. But I am focused on justice. And a review of all the policies, practices, and procedures. Of course, we would look at how we implement. It's not the law itself, it's how we implement the law. If the law is implemented based on fairness, it does not matter about 287G. What matters is how, as a sheriff, we implement. So there's a policy, practice, and procedure that's connected with the law. And that's my call. Does that?
Well, you kind of still didn't answer the question.
I know. I know. I'm practicing being a politician. See, I just did what a politician would do. You talk around the answer, and then you answer my question. I know I didn't answer. I'm practicing being a politician. Yeah. No. But let me say this in a less long-winded way. Again, the political right wants Democrats to get involved or to articulate certain issues, certain hot-button issues. That if we're honest with ourselves, those laws are placed on the books just to divide people. That's it. It is not to keep the streets safe. Because if you look at who's in custody, if you look at what is going on in the jail, Fox News will make you think it is a southern border issue. Let us be honest. Crime is crime. It does not matter a person's citizenship status. So that is the real reason I am not going to chase some of those rabbits that they want me to start saying, oh, he's soft on crime. No, that's not the issue. It's about justice. And the sheriff's job is not a policy-making job. That is the chief peace officer for the county. Any other questions?
Last one.
Last one.
Do I need a microphone?
Hello. Good morning. Good to see you.
Likewise.
I am Laura Lehman, running for Tarrant County Commissioner Seat 3, Precinct 3. One of the big issues that I'm concerned about are the ARPA funds that were misdirected. So our county Republican officials took millions in COVID relief funds designated for housing homeless and childcare and redirected it to the expansion of a private for-profit jail in Garza and to the sheriff for another training facility. Tarrant County taxpayers just paid $101 million for a law enforcement training facility in 2017. What can be done about that when you come into office?
That is another excellent question. Part of the review is, one, to partner with county commissioners to ensure that, and I know there's an expiration term on those funds, the ARPA funds. The federal government returned our tax dollars to us for early childhood education, for health care, including mental health. Now, if the county commissioners were interested in expensing are allocating those funds to deal with issues of mental health, and you want to work with the county jail, part of that should have been focusing on those 59 people, all whom experience mental health issues. That's where we should have started. Reallocating that money to pay for that $40+ million contract and $50 million plus contract in Garza County is totally irresponsible of every person who is currently sitting as a county commissioner.
Republican, Democrat.
All three of them who approved that legislation. That is a waste of our precious dollars, and it is simply irresponsible. In my mind, and a review would determine that there is no need to house people when you can use partner with municipal departments like Arlington and Fort Worth and others. Those who should be cited and released instead of sending them over to Garza County. As a matter of fact, one of our in-custody deaths occurred in Garza County. So it's an issue of accountability.
All right, by the way, he did mention something that I should bring up about the voter suppression in Tarrant County. That's a real deal. Back when the last election that Ramon Romero ran, the Attorney General arrested 2 Latinas, and there was a front page on the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that the largest voter fraud case in Texas had happened in Tarrant County. Those 2 Latinas who worked for Fort Worth ISD lost their jobs. Their faces were on the media, and the charges were dropped 2 months ago for lack of evidence that they did anything wrong. But Latino seniors, about 500, were visited by men with badges and cowboy hats and guns and asked if anybody took their votes. Those seniors aren't voting anymore. Okay? That was the whole intent. There was never any voting fraud. It was voter suppression. And I just tell you, that happened in Fort Worth just a couple of years ago. And now they have the voter integrity unit in Dallas County. You know, and your county judge, and he is racista to the max. I know him because he was the mayor of Farmers Ranch. And he tried to pass a bunch of anti-immigrant laws that were all overturned in federal court. So, we have a lot of work to do in Tarrant County. A lot of work. Talking about a lot of work, we've got a couple of people who are running for Tarrant County County Commissioner. The first candidate is a former Fort Worth City Councilwoman. She served District 8 for several terms as a councilwoman. And she is now running for Tarrant County, what district is that? Precinct 1. Kathleen Hicks, Ms. Hicks, come on up.
Thanks, everybody. I have to go to another event. It's one of those days where you're trying to get so much done. Glad to see my friend, Dr. Mia Hall, and other candidates that are here this morning. I know we see each other just about every day. So it's good to see all of you here. I'm no stranger to these meetings. Go to church across the street. It's very good to see all of you here this morning. I am no stranger to these issues. As Domingo said, I was a member of the Fort Worth City Council for District 8, which runs past downtown into the Greenway area, all the way to Burleson. It is a majority Latino district, and I was very proud to represent that area for a number of years. I'm running for county commissioner for a number of issues, and I have my cards out on the tables. Please look at those. One of the main issues I'm running is number 1, health care. 76104, which I lived in for a number of years until recently, has the highest number of infant mortality deaths, the highest number of mortality deaths, period, in the state of Texas. We rival sub-Saharan Africa for deaths. That is absolutely ridiculous in Texas. Those numbers are horrible, and those people that are dying look like you and I. That should be a travesty. And
I am not a big fan of some of the stuff that we see that comes out of our local paper. But if you look back in the last 9 to 10 months, the Star Telegram did a pretty good article about 76104. The lack of pharmacies, the lack of grocery stores, the lack of just everything. But you can see Payday Living there. You'll see liquor stores there. You'll see a lot of other things that we don't need in the community. And also 76104 is the home of our hospitals. And that brings me to JPS, which is another thing that is a big part of the commissioner's budget. And yet, I worked for Sickle Cell Disease Association for a number of years, and we officed at JPS, and the things that I saw at JPS were really horrifying. And so it is very important that we come in and clean up JPS. And I look at what Parkland has been able to do over the last 10 years, and it's really phenomenal. We have got to put money back into JPS and make it the powerhouse hospital that it can and should be for our citizens. Infrastructure is a very important issue as well. The county commissioners can put money into infrastructure and do the right thing. I was very pleased that I was able to work with Commissioner Brooks to improve East Rosedale, which is a huge thoroughfare in the district that I represented and in Precinct 1. That had been a 20-year project that folks have been trying to get done, and we got it done in about 2 years, working with the railroad, TxDOT, and other entities. Those are the kind of things that I've been known for, to be a can-do activist. I don't call myself a politician, but an activist that really works with citizens. And that brings me to the other thing that I think is most important is you. I cannot do this alone. It is very important that we have everybody having a seat at the table. Today is the anniversary of Dr. Camille Rodriguez is my best friend, and she is president of the Fort Worth ISD School Board. We are both members of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, the oldest, mainly African American sorority in this country and all across the world. It is a service organization, and what it means to me is that it's all about being engaged and bringing people all a seat at the table. The first Black Congresswoman to run for President of the United States was Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. She was a Delta, and she always said there must be a seat at the table for everyone. My goal is for that everyone has a seat at the table, and that means all of you. And if I'm elected, you will all have a seat at the table. And that means also that if I'm your Democratic nominee this fall, and obviously this seat has not been won by Republicans since the middle 80s, so 1980s, so I think that whoever the Democratic nominee will be, that person should be working hard for other Democrats such as sheriff. We need a Democratic sheriff. We need state reps that are Democratic coming out of Fort Worth. We need judges that are Democratic, and that therefore yes ma'am, I will be working hard throughout the year if I'm your Democratic nominee to make sure that down the ballot, up and down the ballot, we have Democrats that win in Fort Worth, in Tarrant County this coming November, and it's also presidential year. And I will tell you that, you know, I've been doing this, it's true, all of my life. Someone introduced me yesterday and said, I've known her since she was 10 years old, licking stamps for the Democratic Party, and she was a pest knocking on doors and stuff. Her mom and aunt would put her out there to work. And so this is really in my blood. It is not about me, it's about you, it's about our community, it's about bringing our coalitions together and bringing about change. It is now or never. I can't tell you how urgent it is. There are really bad things occurring, not only, you know, in Washington, but right here in our community. We've got to stand up together and be unified. I can't say that enough. So please get out and vote. get your family and friends to register and vote. The time to do that is now. And I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. I'd love to talk to you afterwards, or please email me or whatever. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of it, except I refuse to get on TikTok and make a fool of myself. So anyway, thank you so much this morning for letting me talk to you. Have a great weekend and stay warm. And I hope the city of Fort Worth shows some action and opens some warming stations right now, instead of going and doing that parade. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next candidate for Tarrant County Commissioner Precinct 1 is Dr. Mia Hall. She started as a substitute teacher in Fort Worth and climbed the leadership ranks to become the first principal at the Fort Worth ISD's Young Women's Leadership Academy, which earned a National Blue Ribbon Award in 2016. She currently serves as the Executive Director of Strategic Recruitment for Fort Worth ISD. She is also on the Board of Trustees at Crowley ISD Board of Trustees, where she served 3 terms since 2015. Let's give a big hand to Dr. Mia Hall, for County Commissioner.
All right, you guys, so good morning. First of all, I want to thank LULAC for the platform and the opportunity to speak with you this morning. So thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity. I also want to thank Domingo for his leadership and the work that he and LULAC have been doing here, not only in Fort Worth, our Tarrant County community, but also in Dallas as well. So thank you so much for being here. It's not as cold as it's supposed to get. I'm an educator, so my life I live for a snow day. But I also have some superstitions. I believe if I ignore it, it will happen. If I wish for it, it won't. So we'll see how it all turns out on Monday. For those of you who know me, you know that I detest public speaking. No matter how many times I do it, you would think as a teacher, I sit in front of people countless days every day, but I still never get comfortable with it. But I am very humbled by your interest in local politics and your interest in my candidacy. So when people first asked me why I was contemplating to run for Tarrant County Commissioner, everyone was like, why? And honestly, I had to really interrogate that question, because I had to ensure not only the roles and the duties of a commissioner, what they are. Often people ask me, what do commissioners do? But I had to most importantly ensure that the duties and responsibilities align with my own personal and professional mission. And so we know that we are currently in a political landscape in our country that's very polarizing, that's very contentious, and the Commissioner's Court is no exception to that environment. But in full transparency and asking myself why I'm really interrogating that question, it always comes back to the same thing. It comes back to my commitment to serving my community. As the young folks say, life has a way of lifing, and I believe that my professional and personal experiences have prepared me for this role. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself this morning. Some would say that I'm the underdog in this campaign, but I want to tell you what has brought me to this point and why I feel that I am the most suitable candidate for this opportunity. My mother, she was an Army veteran. She's a retired postal worker, and in June, she will be a retiree with ISD, where she served for another 20 years. But my mother worked nights, 20 years of her life, 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, and to ensure that I had everything that I needed, and in times of surplus and times of things that I wanted. But what I learned from my mother was integrity, hard work, and resilience. And she taught me that we don't wear our struggle, and that God has a perfect plan for our lives, and that happiness is a choice, and that joy comes from within. And so those words have served me very well in the best of times and in the worst of times. And so I grew up, I'm about to date myself, I grew up thinking that I was going to be Claire Huxtable. Can you raise your hand and tell me how many know who Claire Huxtable is? Okay, well good. That means that you're, okay. Claire Huxtable was the mother on the Cosby Show, and she was an attorney, and I was a kid of the 80s and And so I admired her and I wanted to be like her when I was, ever since I was a little girl. And I wanted to help women and children. I wanted to be a lawyer. And I thought I would do that through a career in family law. And so 2 weeks before I actually started law school here at, well, once was Texas Wesley and now Texas A&M Law School, my father was murdered. His life was taken by gun violence. And so I don't share that, which is something I've just really started sharing probably in the last 5 years with people. I don't share it for awe, for shock value. I share it because I have experienced trauma firsthand. And I know what one incident in your life, how it can completely change the trajectory of your life. And how tragedy affects your mental and your physical health. And so I didn't fulfill my dream of becoming a lawyer, you guys, okay? But I did discover my passion for education. And I actually did that just up the road at J.P. Elder Middle School, where I was a substitute teacher during law school and where I taught. And so there's no degree plan for elective service, but teaching on the north side, it introduced me to Latino culture, the rich heritage, and most importantly, the unique challenges faced by our Latino sisters and brothers. And being an assistant principal on the east side of Fort Worth at Eastern Hills High School, aka Eastern Thrills for those of us who know the battlegrounds of Eastern Hills High School, they taught me about inequity, the disparities that exist in our community, and what it meant to be overlooked and marginalized. But what Eastern Hills taught me was how to be an advocate for others. And so from there, I traveled on to New Lives School. And if you're familiar or old enough to know New Lives, it was Fort Worth ISD School for Pregnant and Parenting Teens. And what I learned there as principal was about social programs. I learned about food insecurity. I learned about housing subsidies, public health, child care, and the importance of early learning. My New Life students, who were near and dear to my heart, they taught me how to persevere, how to extend grace, the need for second chances, and the experience also, it made me very painfully aware of the importance of actually just how reactive we are as a community, and how detrimental being reactive is to our most vulnerable neighbors. And so we've got to embrace preventative measures to ensure the most vulnerable success. And so in founding the Young Women's Leadership Academy, something that I'm very proud of, is Fort Worth ISD's first single gender school here in downtown Fort Worth. I learned about the importance of innovation and collaboration, and all that we can accomplish when we take the time to research best practices, when we want to leverage a common interest, and when we coalesce community support, when we work together towards the attainment of a goal. And so when I ran for school board in 2015 at Crowley ISD, I wanted to use all of that experience in education, my passion for education, to change my neighborhood schools. And so I know y'all were situated here in Fort Worth, but to tell you a little bit about Crowley, Crowley ISD was not a high-performing district in 2015 when I ran. In fact, it was marginal at best, and there really was no good reason for it to be performing the way that it was. We had strong tax values, we had great facilities, we had engaged parents, and all those things that research says are the recipe for success, but we were failing. And so if you ask me what the difference was, I would tell you plain and simple, it all came down to leadership. The previous superintendent at Crowley ISD, he was the right man for the job at the right time. In 2008, we can all remember when the housing market crashed, we had some financial difficulties that we had never seen before, and we picked someone who was a financial expert, and he brought us through the most difficult times that we had. But when you fast forward to 2015, everything's changed. Performance measures have changed, how we do business and education has changed, how we're funding education had changed, and it was time for us to get a new leader. And so we brought a new superintendent to the district, and now I can pleased to report that Crowley ISD is not only a B+ rated school district, but we're trending towards A. And so the takeaway in that is both superintendents were exceptional at the work that they did. And they were great leaders in their requisite time. But it was time for new leadership. And so Precinct 1, we've had a great leader for several decades, and he served us very well. I've been a resident of Precinct 1 for the last 23 years. But I don't know when the last time you've attended Commissioner's Court, if you've met Judge O'Hare, or what your experience has said. But John F. Kennedy once said, in any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or to step back into safety. And it's a new day and time, and we have far too much at stake in this election. And Republicans, they're not making our jobs any easier. They're not apologizing. I think they stay up all night to figure out how to make things difficult for our communities. And if they had it their way, we would defund JPS. Social programs would cease to exist. Voting would be a privilege only a few would enjoy. And at this time, in case you're keeping up with stories, we're not supporting nonprofits like Girls Inc. Somewhere where I served for the last 7 years, I was there as president of their board. And Girls Inc., their only crime is empowering our young ladies in our community, in this community, to be strong, smart, and bold. And so if defunding programs that support our youth is a democratic notion, that's the side that I want to be on. And so Precinct 1 needs a strong, proven leader to represent our values and our common interests, and we need someone who can speak to their service in our community, who can point to their results and their achievements, and that can articulate a plan to move Precinct 1 forward. And so the part that I always like to say is, guys, I've met a lot of people on this journey, and a lot of people who think a lot like you and I in this room, and yet we still are facing challenges that we have faced for years. And what I can say to you is that I am comfortable being uncomfortable. And what that means is that I will stand up for what our rights, that I will work for you, that I will never sell you short. A friend of mine recently said that I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And that is the truth. I say exactly what I mean, and I say exactly what I mean, and I mean what I say. And so you can rest assured that I would never compromise our community's interests, that the community interests are my interests, and that's who I'm there to represent. I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, and I will stand up and I'll fight. And I'm a fighter. I have a reputation for being a fighter, but not the type of fighter that's going to polarize us any further. The type of fighter, because I pride myself in reaching across the aisle and coalescing, compromise, and building consensus. But you can't build a consensus if you never propose any type of change. And so I will propose change, and we can move away from the status quo and make the advancements that we need here in our community. And I have to say this, in being the underdog, it's a challenge. If you know me, I like setting a goal and I like attaining it. But the comfort that I have in being not obligated to anyone is that I have a level of freedom from not being chosen or handpicked for this opportunity. I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm not obligated to the institution or to any one thing. The only people that I'm obligated to are the citizens and the constituents and the neighbors of Precinct 1. And so, as a 22-year education veteran, I know the merit of early learning and preparing our youngest citizens for success in school, and I will continue standing up for public education. As a proponent for public health, to include the mental health services that we're so deficient here in Tarrant County, I will continue to invest in our healthcare system to ensure that citizens have access to quality healthcare and preventative services, and that will remain at the forefront of my political agenda. And guys, I believe in the dream, the American dream of home ownership, and in partnership with the Housing Authority and our federal legislators and partnership with private and public entities, I will work to create access to affordable housing and create pathways for home ownership in Tarrant County. And like you, I believe in property tax relief. Despite 4 special sessions, Our governor is still holding our tax dollars hostage because he wanted to fund a bill, a school voucher bill. And so we know that we have millions, tens of millions of dollars sitting at the state that we need to be reinvested into our communities. And if using a budget surplus as a political con isn't compelling evidence that there is the possibility of more tax relief, I don't know what is. And regardless of how you feel about the criminal justice system, my colleague here spoke about the jails. We have a constitutional and a moral obligation to keep our inmates safe while they're in custody. And not only does Tarrant County lead the nation, as you've heard Cindy say, in jail deaths, and has for multiple years, we have people being jailed for minor crimes. They're sitting there, and we're not processing them in a timely manner, which is only further marginalizes people in our communities. It makes their jobs insecure, it creates homelessness, and it also just perpetuates the jail inefficiencies that we have. And so, to close, I know I've said a lot of things today, the fate of this election, you guys, is in our hands. The more I'm out here talking to people, the more events that I attend, the more data that I look at, we have an opportunity to change who are sitting on in these seats. We have a chance to change and make Tarrant County blue, but we all have to go out there and vote. And so I'm going to do my part. I'm going to run a hard-fought strategic campaign, and I need your support. I need you to tell your friends and your family about my candidacy. I need you to share my video and my social media handles. And I also need, donations, because elections are free, and spreading the message is what it's going to take to win this campaign. So I know that many Americans, and some of you I hope that aren't in this room, represented in this room, have become disenchanted with our political system, and they don't believe that votes count, or they become frustrated. But democracy is the great American experiment, and it's the foundation of our country. And I can honestly say, just keeping up with the events that are happening in our country, if we don't go to the polls and make sure that our voice is heard, I don't think that we've seen how bad it can be or the worst to come. And so with that, I'm going to close. I hope that you will support me. My name is Dr. Mia Hall. I'm running for Tarrant County Commissioner for Precinct 1. And again, thank you for your time and your attention. If you have any questions, it's one of my pleasure to answer you at this time.
Dr. Hall, you're in the education business.
Oh, sorry.
I can get off. That's okay. There's a responsibility in each school system in the state of Texas, particularly the superintendent, to actually get every child who's going to turn 18 to have the right to vote. But we don't register all these young people there's 1,100 districts in the state of Texas, and there's somewhere along like 5.5 million students. Unfortunately, that door is going to close on February the 5th. Now, I know that in Dallas and most of the high schools, we have been, we pressured the district first, but then they came along because we know what it can do to a county to turn it the way we want it to be. And you know that Dallas has been very successful at that. But I think that we need to key in, and Brother Sherman is here too, from the state level, because I discussed this with Mike Morat, who's our Commissioner of Education, which is where I think you ought to be yourself. But because we're not getting what we should, because they evaluated the school system, there is an organization called the Texas Civil Rights Project, and they have been following this over the last 10 or 15 years that this policy has been in place. It started with the Secretary of State, and now, the main guy is the Commissioner of Education. But I think we need to be thinking about those kinds of ways we can change the way we're developing the voting pool. And it's in those schools, because we are the youngest group, black and brown, in the state of Texas and in the country. Your comments or your opinion?
So I do you didn't ask me a question, but I do have some opinions about that. What I can say is that it's a policy in every public school, because it's a state policy, for us to register our students who are eligible to vote. And so in Fort Worth ISD, in my previous roles, I have been a part of that. What I will say is that's kind of multifaceted. One, we as citizens have a responsibility to, I want to say, to offer a hedge of protection to our school board members and our school administrators. Because in doing that work in the last few years when I did assist with it, we were met with so much opposition and so much scrutiny and so many open records requests and so many negative comments down in public comment and they made it seem like we were doing something sinister, but we were actually following the law. And so I feel like there's an opportunity in your question to talk about how we have the opportunity to create synergy amongst the electives and create synergy in our community to do the things to move the work that needs to be moved. Because that issue, while it sits as a responsibility at the school level, it is a responsibility of our community to make sure that our young people are registered to vote and that they have a voice at the poll. And so we're under attack fighting that alone at the school system when that is something that we should all be working together to do. And so, yes, that is something that I would champion most definitely as if elected commissioner, and something that I'm already doing on the school board, because we do have a number of organizations that we work with to make sure that our students are registered to vote and that we have the funds available to make sure that we can get them to the polls, because that's the next step. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
And I'll repeat the question so y'all can hear.
question is that we've had that same person in that position that you're going for as commissioner for the last 25 plus years. What changes are we seeing instead of just keeping the same blueprint? How do you change your blueprint?
So I don't know if there's a question in that either. I think I heard a comment. I think what she said was, and I want to sure you correct me if I heard you right, that we've had the same person serving in the precinct 1 commissioner seat for the last 25 years, and that we've kind of had a blueprint that's been, I don't know, that we've been operating under, and how can we change that to ensure that, can you say that last part again? I want to make sure I state it right. I'm going to say it in my favor. What did you say, the last part? What is the last part of your question
The
about?
last part is, are we gonna see any changes on your blueprint?
Yes, you would definitely see changes on my blueprint, and I want to say this. I do respect Commissioner Bruce, and I think I parallel it to what I said in my speech earlier, is that we have the right people at the right time. And so it's a new day and it's a new time. The court is crazy. We've got to have people down there who aren't afraid to speak up, and I think who have, I want to say, the freedom to do what needs to be done, and not be comfortable in their service, because you guys are just it's gonna have to be uncomfortable. I'm not a career politician. I don't always say I don't believe in term limits necessarily, but I definitely believe in limiting your term. And I believe that when you become ineffective, that's when you're supposed to leave. I went to Crowley ISD to have a high-performing school district, and we now have one. And so I'm departing from that work to further my impact in this seat. And so yes, there will be a different blueprint. And I think the thing that I have done best, my leadership has been very authentic and it's been very organic. Just through my volunteerism in the community and the different roles that I've served. And I want to bring that skill and working with the community to find out what the actual interests are. And the type of work that I do, we often prescribe to people what we think that they need to be successful, or what we think their deficiencies are, but we don't talk to them and ask them what it is that they actually need. And so that's something that I believe that I would bring that will make us more successful in Precinct 1 and make sure that we have the resources and someone to stand in the gap that we have in Precinct 1. So thank you for your comment, and I'll take your question. Yes, sir. It's recorded, so I can't reach you.
Okay.
You come on.
Okay. Well, just real quick, what would you say to those who say that brown and black history shouldn't be taught in schools, and things like the Alamo and Jim Crow shouldn't be taught from a brown and black perspective? Because it sounds too much like critical race theory.
So thank you for that question. So my previous role, which no longer exists because the naysayers are louder My last role in Fort Worth ISD I was the Executive Director of Equity and Excellence, which means that the work that you're speaking to is exactly what I did every day. I delivered professional development to make sure that our teachers were prepared to reach our students in the classroom with culturally responsive teaching, right? That's the real CRT is culturally responsive teaching and not critical race theory, because we don't teach that in public schools. So to that, in case you didn't know, there's legislation that prevents us from teaching history in a way that makes people feel uncomfortable, okay? So if I'm going to talk about slavery and it's going to make you feel uncomfortable that your ancestors owned slaves, I'm not supposed to teach that. And if I'm going to talk about issues of, immigration or oppression or marginalization, I can only teach that if I'm going to provide a point of view that says, I don't know, that I'm equally excited about providing the point of view from the Nazi perspective as I am from the Jewish perspective. That's pretty much what the law says in a nutshell, and that sounds preposterous, so you probably should Google it, and you're gonna find out that it's true. But again, the question that you asked me is not necessarily a county issue, but it again speaks to the opportunities that we have to coalesce